Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to Joe and Pages for so much work in organising this really important event, and thanks for inviting me to read. I'm really, really pleased to be here with all the other readers. I will stay for as long as I can, but I have a 3-month-old at the back there, so I may have to leave early. But thanks all so much for coming and supporting the event today. So I'm just going to read some poems, mostly without introduction. I hope that's okay. Ceasefire. In winter, the days are long. I've called away my voice from all but the sound of a single word, searched for soulmates among the shrouds, learnt to love their afterlives. I've written letters to cowards, translated the dreams of the shaheed, contemplated suicide. I'm touching the houseplants more often, pressing the tips of my fingers to soil, taking their leaves like hands. Threshold. Windows in our hands, war is as it happens, smiling faces, pictures of the dead, school photos, wedding shots, graduations, birthday cakes. All beauty becomes stained shrouds, bodies gathered in softness, now they can't be touched. Every day we are falling in love with people already gone. Here now you'll come through the door all glorious. I wait on your lips for an answer to what you found out there that will save us. All it takes. When a child is found beneath the rubble of a home, perfect body caked in ash, I think of all it takes to grow a child, a whole body, stretched and starved, scarred for giving safe passage. Those early years, the night watches, the fevers, the feeding, homes scoured for choking hazards, the rescues, the falls, the emergency rooms, the all of a mother who worked the worth of a lifetime to keep a child, only to raise her gaze to the skies, she couldn't stop from falling. Returning from the Peace March. The girls have found a late furrow of sun. Too young for almost everything, they've landed this bench, the day's last wrinkle of warmth. I ruffle their huddled world, my passing body casting their faces in dark. They look at me. I want to tell them, don't be afraid. The sun doesn't set so fast. Instead, I pray, let the children always know how to sift gold from the silt of war. So this one is written for Hind Rajab, and she was the 6-year-old girl who was killed by Israeli fire from a tank while she was waiting to be rescued in a car full of her dead relatives by paramedics who were also killed as they came to rescue her. Paper butterfly. Come to me quick, I am upstairs shaking, my all of you birchwood in lightning. You touch my forehead with your lips, 2 fingers gentle raise my chin, spoon cold tongue syrup clings. Your elbow crease, a butterfly print, not an angel near, nor a kiss from a star, not a change or something turbulent from afar, but the feel of a landing, antennae stir, my beating wings, in your cupped hands, the moment in rescue when all goes dark, the terror before release into unending air. So finally, I'm going to read this poem, Frontier, and it's after the Palestinian filmmaker Mai Masri. When the way was clear to the border, they traveled on buses for miles, stalked by soldiers spitting gum, sorry, I should introduce this one slightly. Sorry for the context, I'm out of practice reading for obvious reasons. This poem was written after watching a film made by Mai Masri about the day that Israeli forces withdrew from southern Lebanon in 2008, and they withdrew very suddenly. And when that happened, Palestinians living on either side of the border in refugee camps in southern Lebanon and then in the West Bank travelled to meet at the border, and some hadn't seen each other since 1948 and the Nakba. So yeah. When the way was clear to the border, they travelled on buses for miles, stalked by soldiers spitting gum. The people paid them no mind, hearts set on seeing their land and meeting the strangers they loved. They called out surnames, held photographs 52 years old, passed prickly pears over razor wire, sacks of apple and bread. They loosened watches from their wrists, unclasped the gold from their necks. So you'll never forget me, I'll never forget you. They cupped the earth, filled pockets with home. Let me kiss you, said a boy to an uncle, and cocked his head, slid it clear of the metal spikes, pressed his lips to the old man's face. They clung to the border, their palms a perfect fit between the barbed parts of the wire, fingers finding that space between one threat and the next, as if peace were a resting place and freedom a thing to hold. Thank you.
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm not a poet. I'm an artist based in Birmingham. My name's Faisal Hussain. Thank you so much for being invited. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Pages of Hackney, and it's a pleasure to be alongside such esteemed writers today. I suppose the kind of stuff I really am here to talk about is the work behind me. My history is a kind of, particularly in terms of Birmingham, is associated with trying to animate and take space to do with things like anti-war movements, political movements. So my practice is linked to poetry through text, and particularly now, in terms of how those spaces are becoming kind of condensed, I just wanted to share a few kind of inspirations which may be of use. I produce work which is essentially to do with anti-racism and to do with taking up public space and responding back to the very visible racism that is kind of now apparent. The first exhibition that I did was called Suspect Objects, which looked at the objectifying and essentially the rise of Islamophobia. And as part of that, the works that I produced were shop signs that responded to the kind of racist rhetoric and the kind of warmongering that was going on. See It, Say It Racist comes from the moniker See It, Say It Sorted, which is our current Gestapo kind of call to action for when we are on buses and trains and innocuous places, making us feel alone and making us feel like we need to be suspicious of our brothers and sisters that we share the world with. So I suppose part of what I'm trying to say is that despite the kind of crackdown on people's creativity, particularly in terms of the demonstrations against the genocide, it is one of the places, creativity is one of the places which they can never take away. And I just wanted to say that in terms of poetry and in terms of those things, it's one of the most powerful and will always be one of the most powerful places to exist. And those spaces can be wonderful. I was given the opportunity to exhibit all my work just around the corner in Hackney in January by an organisation called Build Hollywood. And essentially, the work, it was great to show it in, you know, cool Hackney for a Brummie lad. Wow, it's great. So I took over a shop and had a variety of these sculptures that had text to do with, you know, aphorisms, poetry. We are here because you were there, a quote from Sivanandan, to do with the kind of post-colonial kind of context of why people are here. That, you know, there is something fulfilling about belonging, and more basic things like go back to where you hate from. And so it was a real brilliant privilege to be able to show this work, this kind of text sculptural work. But unfortunately, the work was kind of, and which is why I'm talking about kind of people making things and to carry on making things, is because the UK lawyers for Israel decided to essentially threaten the company to take the work down. And yeah, the most powerful, I think, kind of voice of any form of oppressed or any form of solidarity kind of has to be its loudest at the moment. So therefore, events like this and the process of making this work is something that everyone should be getting involved in, not just for you know, kind of individuals who've had the privilege, but it really is for everyone. Each one of those signs that kind of are seen on demonstrations have so much validity. So really I'm here in that kind of aspect of solidarity, and I wish solidarity and solace to all of those individuals, to all of us who are kind of supporting the Palestinian cause. And that's kind of all really I wanted to say. But I've also got this for sale, which is also available. This is one of the posters that they tried to confiscate and take down. They were all kind of ripped down, but there's about 5 of them left. So one of them is here and available for sale for anyone who wants it, and obviously 100% of that would go to the charity. But thank you so much. Cheers. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Zina Agar. I'm a Palestinian Iraqi writer and poet, and I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Joe and Pages for making this happen. I also just want to say Mabruk Nadine, I'm so happy for you, and I feel so emotional just saying it because I also had a baby during the genocide, and this feeling of, I guess, the horizontal axis between birth and death is so close at the moment, and some of the poems I'm going to read tonight also relate to that, but I just want to say well done, and you're a superhero, and I'm so proud of you. Wow, yeah. I was saying I don't think I'm going to cry tonight because I've been feeling so numb lately, but it doesn't take very much. I guess before I read, I just want to share something that I heard that really resonated recently. I had the privilege of seeing Arundhati Roy talk in Bath, and she's reading from her new memoir, and there's this bit in it where her mum, who's this kind of tempestuous figure, sends her to boarding school, her and her brother to boarding school, and she says, you can't be average, you have to be excellent. And they come back with their reports, and her brother doesn't do so well, and she does very well. And her mother takes her brother into the next room and beats him with a ruler until it breaks, but whispering the whole time so that she doesn't wake. And then he comes back, and him and Arundhati Roy share a room, and Arundhati Roy's awake, but she doesn't talk to him. And the next morning, their mother comes in and says, well done, you did excellent grades. You had excellent grades to Arundhati Roy. Anyway, she reads this passage, and at the end she says, she says that she felt like every time she gets an applause, she feels like someone is being beaten in the next room. And that really struck me and stuck with me, I think, because during this period of genocide where we're here, a lot of us as writers are thankfully having spaces of solidarity and platform, but it feels like a very poisoned chalice to be here, even to devote my time this evening to be with you all feels like an unfair privilege because someone is being beaten in the next room. And so it's in the spirit of those people that I want to dedicate the space tonight and express gratitude, I suppose. So I'll just read a few poems from my new collection, which is called Octobers. And it's sort of about birth and death and the genocide. Jabalia 2.0. The Calithia, since returning home, is recovering. A new leaf birthed like a banknote several mornings a week. Hala counts 160 people martyred in 3 weeks. Since last night till now, the rain has not stopped, knocking the roof, tapping the windows. The sound is safety. 6 tons of ammunition to bomb the camp. After killing 400, do it again. Girl birthed from rubble, crown in dust, limbs right-angled feet, lifted whole, a creature undrowned. Midwives place her on a stretcher and call to others, move. Around them, only moon rocks. Uncle, are you taking me to the graveyard? Her cry is feeble, deliverance that heralds its funeral. And the boy laughs, sound quavering like a bell. No, my darling, you are alive and as beautiful as the moon. Sorry, I'm having trouble with this. Can you hear me all right? Okay, thanks. Latch. Second day after discharge, she latches, sleeps like an ermine across my neck. Days short as sighs, sun angles across our bed, a sudden halo on household items. We recover together. I watch films exposing scandal, stalwart editors with titan adversaries, Hollywood, the church, the state. They end with flooded hotlines, screens of somber text. The morality is pedestrian. Postpartum, I am not paying attention and feel a flicker of jubilation. The truth will out, come hell, come high water, turning live-streamed slaughter into a sleight of hand. Not one foreign reporter on our ground. It follows. Some may have died, none has yet been killed. Thank you. It's my fault, I'm so small. Okay. Cool. Grief as a form of mental illness has been discussed at length in the literature. I read whole books on the loss of a single figure, the irrevocable ways lives are altered. Therefore, the acronym WCNSF, Wounded Child, No Surviving Family, must be pure, uncut, transcendental, sublime. Thought for the day, which is a fuck you to the BBC for anyone who listens to Thought for the Day. Prophet Elijah, when put upon by Queen Jezebel, sought respite in the desert. He was sustained by an angel who brought him bread. Later, he found God in the silence, an affirmation of the justness of his position. The moral for contemporary times is rest, nourishment, and silence are of paramount importance to exist effectively. Presumably, these events, angel, bread, desert, are within whaling distance of the besieged geography today fashioned as the Gaza Strip. Impartiality. To speak this story of positive silence after endless months of fire and famine and body fragments reconstituted in plastic bags. At 5 a.m. Wind coaxes curtain across the floor, the only sound save the suck of her thumb, a faraway alarm, the menace of traffic. Israelis razed the cemetery, and its corpses live on my phone. The air chills, August still, but cold times calling ahead. I survey every room, pallid in excessive light. From the doorway, I see a spiral peel of despair, skinned with a knife in need of sharpening. I'm okay on time, okay. I'll just read 2 more poems, if that's okay. I've never read this one out loud, so it might work better on the page, but this is friendly group, I hope. 2 teeth. A little tooth in her mouth, and Beirut has been bombed. In the park, the news teems. In the trees, she can hold an orange for a few minutes, then it's over. More might come in the night. She takes water. These July days are hot. Then news of the assassination, the whole family gone, almost. She opens and closes her palms. On Nusayrat, more strikes. What happens when a crater is shelled again and again? She splashes now. Likes being toweled dry. The earth cracks. Time for a haircut, a riot at the prison. Strands fall over her eyes. Against sanctioning the rapists, she's taller than ever. Some clothes too small. Impunity dresses in suits. Sounds are changing. She waits for a pause. The radio opens with Hamas run and ends with control center. She twists during changes. In the middle, rotting bodies and amputations on kitchen tables. She holds onto noses. What do they mean by regional war? Sitting up close to, but leaning to the side to look at you. And this last poem, I wrote before the genocide, but going back to that theme of mourning a single person and mourning a whole people at once. West 111th Street. The moon turns us all to silver, a disk of gold burning in the deep purple of the past. These filthy streets, these majestic homes. My mother took in the moon, confessed it showed her her brother, tortured in combat. He poured himself a glass of petrol and burnt down her house. The same moon shows her my face, shows her faces of ones she loves, an offering, a reflective surface. At her memorial, a story shared of Dario's mother. She would summon him from his dorm room, tell him, "Look at the moon. I'm looking at it too. Now we are together." Thank you.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Joe. And I'm very well, it's very emotional, isn't it? I mean, it is very emotional. It's very difficult knowing that our government is participating in this awful, awful genocide. God, every time I stand up these days, I don't know if it's like, I used to think it was like menopause, my father dying, the world's falling apart, but I start crying. It's just so sort of strange. I'm going to read from my book, which came out in 2024, and actually there's a kind of a little part of it is about Gaza, I guess, or response to Gaza, which I probably wrote. I'm a very slow writer. I finished writing this at the end of 2022, so I probably wrote this bit in like 2019, 2020. And I'm going to start slightly before the bit about Gaza, just to give you, so that the episode might make sense. Here we go. Other faces decorate the fridge freezer. The cat's was carved from a piece of cedar, her tiny green eyes on lookout, her pink mouth a purse of pity. Beside her, Samuel Beckett in black and white. It was shot in 1976, the year of the drought, the year after Franco died, the year my parents took us to Spain in someone else's car. We returned with a barrel of wine hidden beneath the back seat, just scraping through customs thanks to the car-sick child sitting on top of it. I can still see the soldier's eyes reaching through the window. Something ran across his heart and he gently waved us through. Beckett's gaze is less forgiving. He will not look away. If he cared, he might be imploring me to do what must be done before it is too late. As it is, he aches with regret at my frivolous decision to slap his face between a pussy and a plastic sunflower. Would he be happier if I created one of those unfinished sentences out of magnetic poetry, arranging the pieces at awkward angles to suggest they are sidling away from his lean top lip? A sort of riff on a riff to show that I am in on the joke, the one you attempted to explain to me, the one I've still not understood, the one about high culture meets low culture. Anyway, I bought the mini portrait with serious intent to remind myself of my admiration for Beekman's words, even when I'm standing in the kitchen smashing a slab of pork with a rolling pin. Sometimes I want to smash his portrait too because I'm bored of my Beckett pretensions. I've seen so many fridges with this photo of his face, as if the dead Irishman was some kind of deity, as if the unblinking intelligence oozing from every furrow in his face also oozes from the owner of the fridge. Oh, I felt such a fraud when Omar bounced into the kitchen and, glancing at the fridge freezer, released 3 joyful gusts. Ah, yes, Beckett. I only wish I'd pulled it from its place right there, right then, and given it to him to put on his own fridge door. Years later, here it is, still on show for anyone to see. Why won't I throw it away? Put it in the bin like the squirrel's skin? Perhaps it's too late. Perhaps it's because his mouth is closed, because, as he himself said, nothing is sayable. Because everything in this damned world calls for indignation, even a magnet clinging to a fridge. The word Gaza follows the curve of the hand-painted tile that arrived in London inside a paper bag. It was brought by a man who was born in Brig, a man who goes to the occupied Palestinian territories to help the medics improve their emergency procedures for trauma injuries. It's decorated with a palm tree and a stoic figure riding a camel across the sand. As if it knows its own history, this ceramic with a magnet glued to its back is chipped in 2 places. It has a long crack running down the left side and another that meets it across the top. Like so many of our things that end up on the kitchen floor, you glued it back together, but the broken white spaces still insist upon loss. The first time I held it, I felt quite overwhelmed. I thought about the hands that had made it, and the hands those hands have held, and the lives lived by the owners of all those hands. I thought about the bread that has been torn in those hands, the taps that have been turned, and the water that has washed. I thought about the hair that has been untangled between the fingers on those hands, and the wire fences to which they have clung. I thought about the rocks that have been thrown, and the flags that have been waved, the fists of protest that have been formed, and the fires that have been lit. I thought about the scarves that have been tied and the shirts that have been torn and all the tears that have been wiped away. I thought about the pages that have been turned, the spoons that have been stirred, the instruments that have been plucked and the laces that have been pulled. I thought I saw the nostrils that have been poked, the lips that have been touched and all the Kirby grips that have slid through locks of hair and around folds of cotton and silk. I wondered what was being made with all the threads that have been pushed through all the fixed needles of steel. I saw the screws that have been turned and the walls into which they have been pushed. I saw the clothes that have been folded and the rings that are still worn. Today, I think about all the eyes that have looked in the direction those fingers have pointed. What would I give to see what they have seen? Without this broken tile, I might not have appreciated Don Patterson's poem, printed in pencil inside your drawer. The shudder in my son's left hand he cures with one touch from his right, 2 fingertips laid feather light to still his pen. He understands the whole man must be his own brother, for no man is himself alone, though some of us have never known the one hand's kindness to the other. Now, I'm watching footage of a hand that shudders beside a border fence in Gaza. I'm trying to follow the rubber-coated steel bullets as they fly through the air. I can hear the explosions. I can see the flags and the flames, and I'm regretting that I told you a lie. I often wonder how I have made sense of all the photos I have seen that have filled me with fragments in my life's half-century. Fuzzy thinking about lines of people queuing behind razor wire, about olive trees being hacked to pieces and houses built on hills with bedrooms that are watchtowers, and the skateboard park and the beach and the zoo with the mummified animals, the starving lion that gets rescued. And there is dust from Gaza in our home. It's in the kitchen. It's on the fridge. I have touched this dust. Have I swallowed it? Have I swept it up? Is there dust from Gaza on the broom? Beside the ironing board in the cupboard under the stairs, the broom that brushes over all the trainers that are piled up and muddled up and waiting to go out and run, have I taken dust from Gaza into Epping Forest and shed it beneath the oak that began to grow while Henry VIII still trod this earth? I didn't believe you when you told me about the dust that was discovered in the gutters of the roofs of buildings in Berlin and Oslo and Paris. Dust that backs up the birth of the solar system, dust that is over 4.5 billion years old, dust that entered the atmosphere at a speed of 12 kilometers per second, the fastest moving dust ever found on Earth. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here today. I'm really honoured to be on this panel, but also really upset at the same time, like Sina said. I'm going to read 3 short poems today. Oh, I should introduce myself, shouldn't I? That's the one thing I was supposed to do. My name is Nida. I'm a Scottish-Pakistani writer, and I'm going to read 3 short poems today. They're all about resistance and its many manifestations. The first poem I wrote after I went to a protest earlier this year. Whitehall. It's noon when the street severs into 2. Rows of high-vis vests, wheeled rods and visors and venom. Protesters smile back, raise new rallying cries, tongues weary but wiser from rites of violence. A woman dries her eyes, lifts a crimson watermelon sign, its seeds screaming for a free Palestine. The second poem is about neurospicy solidarity, specifically about the experience of being an autistic activist and learning to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. Shut down. Suddenly, you're a seashell, your spine curling into an apse, your arms circling restless knees, close as beads on a rosary. Crouched in the hush of a church, cast off from the rush of the world, we are veiled in floating flames. Slowly you sway, slowly the city stills, the loud foam of its sins stemmed by your altered body. Silent, I slide into the pew of you and stim. The third poem is about the semiotics of resistance and is inspired by a BSL interpreter. It's slightly more uplifting because I wanted to end on a somewhat hopeful note. Her mouth, a dancer. Standing at the fade of the stage, she intimates her intimacy reserved for those who know how to glean the grammar of her face. Her fingers melting syntax, melding a world magnific in its wake. Gauzy residue lingering in the kinetic haze, a cloud of morphing mouth takes shape. Rhapsodic, the audience springs, a fleet of feet, uproarious acoustics, reflecting off the hall's narrow walls, until finally she lets her lips sit. Thank you.
What? Oh, that's okay. Can you help me with the mic? Cheers. Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight, and I'm Golnush. Nice to see you all. I'm an Iranian poet, writer, and lecturer, and tonight I'm going to read a piece of creative nonfiction that I wrote when Israel invaded Iran a few months ago in June. Friday the 13th. Turns out to be ominous, the most ominous indeed. I first learned the news of the bombing of my country from my best friend who lives in Tehran. Before registering the attack, my first thought is how much I've missed his gorgeously deep voice. My second thought, no time to have thoughts, just panic, panic, panic. Rage, internet, analysis, insanity, further confusion and rage. For the first time in my life, I'm glad my parents are dead. Otherwise, they would be in the middle of it, both being stubborn, risk-taking patriots who wouldn't leave their home, who returned to Iran in the middle of the Iran-Iraq war to serve their country through its universities. Idealists, really. Now the bombs are falling unsettlingly close to our house in Tehran. That's my inheritance going up in smoke. Not that financial matters should even matter at all at this point. At least as an Iranian, I'm privileged that A, my patriotic parents are dead, B, all my siblings and their kids happen to be outside the country right now. Let's count the blessings and breathe. I was born right after a war, and I grew up under the threat of yet another war. I don't recall exactly when this fear emerged in my psyche. I remember it solidified when the US invaded Iraq, and everyone said Iran would be next. Thank you. I admit this was one of the reasons why I was determined to leave. The other reason was, of course, the awful government. But I'm so sick of saying that the Iranian regime is also nasty. So what? That doesn't give other countries the right to bomb Iran. Yet there is an insane narrative in the Western media, in the Iranian diaspora, and to a lesser extent, sadly, inside Iran itself, that if you don't cheer for Israel, it means you support the Iranian government, aka the murderous oppressors of many Iranian civilians. Like most other dichotomies, this is also a false one, a simplistic one at best, and a propagandist and reductive one at worst, propagated by both bloodthirsty governments and their naive and cruel supporters. I'm sick of all these discussions, discourses, and dichotomies. I have done my best to avoid politics for a while, but there doesn't seem to be an escape, not if you're Iranian right now, or indeed ever. On Friday the 13th, the ominous day of Israel bombing Iran, my first impulse after video calling my siblings was to escape to the forest near the house. The forest is the only thing I increasingly love and connect with in this area and often explore when the weather is nice. The forest has embraced my frustrations, my happiness, lost, confusions, and despair before. I know this time it won't let me down either. It is often deliciously empty, other than the occasional white woman with her big dog or a fit man on a bike. While deciding to take myself to the forest for the first time in my entire life, I totally forgot I had to attend a work thing. Sorry, can you hear me? I'm still struggling with the mic. No, it's fine now. Can you hear me now? Did you hear me before? Good. You didn't miss out on anything if you didn't. On Friday the 13th, I was scheduled to tutor Persian at 2:30 p.m. in Hackney, and I simply forgot to turn up. Thankfully, my pupil was impressively understanding and sympathetic, I think partly because she has Iranian heritage herself. There was going to be a protest opposite the Israeli embassy. My partner begged me not to go there as it would be dangerous, but I felt suffocated in the house, couldn't see my partner or even my cat, couldn't speak English. I wanted to be with other Iranians, to hear Persian and to only speak Persian. I got ready, not exactly knowing where I was going. I was thinking of going to the Israeli embassy to attend the protest, to scream, to somehow stop them from bombing my country. I was finally tired of living like a coward my entire life. I wanted to be brave for once. I dressed up, wore a mini skirt, even put on some makeup, lined my eyes with my favorite black liner, which is cutely called perversion. Reddened my sallow cheeks with my new favorite blush, which is annoyingly called grateful. It's true. Even made my bitter lips look less wounded with the help of a gloss. I thought if I was going to get killed at the Israeli embassy, I wanted to look good, my cold eyes shining through the blood running down my face. You can't get any more Iranian than this. I wanted to be one of those beautiful martyrs, ruefully desired even after my demise. I thought of the Iranians slaughtered during the Woman Life Freedom in 2022, and one of my British friends asking me, why are they all so hot? Genuinely bemused. I was also thinking of Mishima again, not just his stylized suicide, but also how misunderstood his political leanings are in the West, how he was hijacked by the right. All he really wanted was to oppose the Americanization of Japan. And honestly, how is this a fascistic idea? Why should Japan, be even remotely influenced by cringe America? Okay, he also loved the emperor. Too bad, I can't even force myself to like our tedious, regressive, murderous supreme leader. But I do love my country, my land, despite not having been there for 7 years, because I couldn't tolerate the government any longer. I couldn't tolerate the Islamic dictatorship destroying our beautiful land and beautiful people. I couldn't tolerate my own paralyzing fear, my powerless rage, the chaos, the uncertainties. My anxious temperament couldn't deal with it all anymore. And how I regret my cowardice now. Friday the 13th, when my homeland got bombed, felt like the day that my mother died in 2016. That was also a Friday, but the 11th. For a while after, I found myself attempting to convince myself that my mother died on the 12th, so she would have been alive for one more day. But then I realized this wouldn't have made much of a difference. Now Friday the 13th feels just right in the most sinister way possible. I think of my grandmother who told me losing her daughter was of course hard, but what made it harder was the other women in the mosque who started pitying her. She said I might know how to deal with the grief, but I'm not sure how to deal with being pitied. On Friday the 13th, I thought about being pitied and realized that just like my grandmother, I too fear it more than death itself. We have two oppressors now instead of one. It's very pitiable indeed. Though I don't think we are user-friendly victims. Iranians are far from perfect victims. Unless it's a young woman brutally slaughtered by the Iranian regime just right before the West is about to impose new sanctions, we are not often seen as victims. We are far too intimidating as a nation. After all, it has been stated that we have nuclear weapons. And we are, let's say, passionate, at least stereotypically, but also, let's be honest, yes, not a good mixture, military power with a hot head and a pinch of Islam. terrorist much? We don't do much better as secular immigrants either. Iranian immigrants are generally successful in most areas of life. They mostly flourish in the West. They are often from confident upper middle class backgrounds. They only date each other or powerful white people. They buy property. They exhibit Islamophobic tendencies. They are a bit snobby with questionable politics. Hello, glamorous pro-Israel monarchists. In short, Iran's situation has always been a bit too nuanced, and we are too much competition for white people to be properly pitied, only passive-aggressively patronized. But maybe being bombed will change this too. Despite being a British citizen, I only really feel Persian, Iranian. I don't feel British. I know I never will, and frankly, I don't want to. I appreciate my British passport and I dislike my Iranian passport, a weak document issued by Islamic Republic displaying an ugly photo of me in hijab. But I don't feel British. I feel Persian, and surprisingly, I mostly love being Iranian. In fact, I'm one of those stupidly proud Iranians who annoy the fuck out of the self-loathing ones. Because I cannot help but feel that our civilization, our poetry, our cuisine, our language, our warmth, our pride will outlive all these pathetically destructive politicians. Once I left the house, I called my closest Iranian friend in London. I was worried about her. She had already been extremely disturbed by what Israel had been doing to Palestine. I couldn't even imagine what she was going through with the notorious genocide machine now bombing our own country, where we grew up, our own neighborhood, our own family and friends. I was hoping her parents wouldn't be in Iran, but of course they were. Of course my friend was beside herself. But we both calmed down after shouting on the phone for hours, exchanging bad political analysis, and realizing we had missed the protest. I wanted to see her in person more than anything else, but first I went into the woods. Thank you.
Okay.
I really hope this works.
No, this is the main entertainment of the evening.
Shall I just stand there?
I think it's fine. Yeah, that's good. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That's good. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this evening, and thanks to Hackney Pages and Joe for organizing this beautiful evening. My name is Ahmed Masoud. I'm a Palestinian writer from Gaza. I grew up in the Gaza Strip all my life, and I'm in London. I'm a writer. I'm a novelist, playwright, and most recently a poet. The reason I came here today is to actually read you a poem from this new book, which is on sale over there, which I wrote for my brother, who was killed last year in January, 22nd of January in Gaza. But I can't, unfortunately. I did try, but it's always very emotional and very difficult to kind of read that poem, but you can read it. It's in the book, amongst many other amazing writers in there, so you should read them and check them out and support their work as well. Outside, like before this genocide started, I write. Usually, actually was pleased to hear the last speaker, because my writing style is very similar to that indeed. I write outrageous things about outrageous stories and people. I write about people in Gaza and Palestine. I've decided to be a Palestinian writer, and all of my work is set in Gaza. I wrote 2 novels, all set in Gaza, and all of my plays are set there as well. I wrote a play called The Shroud Maker, about a woman who makes money out of shrouds for the dead. So the more people that die in Gaza, the better for her, because she makes money. I wrote a play about a taxi driver who was on Tinder all the time and didn't really care about anything in Palestine apart from getting laid. And I wrote recently a play about set in 2048, about Gaza winning the rights to host the Olympics in 2048. So that's kind of my style, and that's what I like to write about. And the reason I do that is, again, back to the idea of that perfect victim sort of thing, that we're always presented as the perfect victims in there. I spoke to my brother today, actually, in Gaza, and he was talking and laughing and full of energy, while at the same time telling me that he's sleeping on the street. He had to evacuate Gaza City, go to Nusayrat, where he is now in the middle of Gaza City, and he is literally sleeping on the street with no home at all. And he's still laughing, he's still very dignified, and he still has that life in him, which I really admire so much. So that's what I write. I'm sorry I can't read you the poem, but I will read you from the play, which is called Camouflage, about the guy who is on Tinder all the time. It is meant to be, he's a real life character. I met him in 2019 in Gaza. I went in his taxi, and I tell you what, I was so shocked and amazed by this guy. Like, he's so fascinating. He's the most, apologies, he's the most sexist and misogynistic person I've ever met in my life. Somebody who normally you would punch in the face like 1,000 times. But amongst all of these things that he said, there was something that was really interesting, which I'm going to tell you about, which is the fact that Tinder came out a few years ago, and of course people in Gaza, they're under siege. They've never left Gaza, right? So they've never seen anything else. So for them, this was amazing to connect and all of these things. So a lot of people, mostly horny men in Gaza, started using Tinder, and guess what? They connected with the Israelis because it works by location, right? It doesn't recognize borders or anything. So a few of them changed their names and all of these things. Anyway, it didn't last long because the Israelis figured this out, and then they complained to Tinder, and Tinder blocked their service in the West Bank and Gaza. Now, that is not what the whole play is about, but this is part of it. So he goes, so there's a lot of other things happening, but this is kind of part of a monologue. He says, if only the makers of Tinder came to Gaza, they might have decided to make some amendments to the app, or do some research about their main competitors, aka Hamas. Honestly, the guys arrange big communal weddings for single people, and apparently, if you marry the wife of a martyr, you get something like $500. If you marry the wife of a martyr who was killed in the war in 2014 and had children, you get more money, something like $600. I don't know if it fucking goes up with the number of children they have or not. I know it is $100 if you marry the wife of someone killed in a drone attack, $200 if they were killed in a small incursion. Then they all gather in small football stadium, men clean shaven and with their greasy hair with too much gel. The women, oh my God, they all look the same, as if they all went to the same hairdresser, all of them caked with makeup. I mean, where do you get these makeup from Gaza? In this freaking siege. I suppose there is a specialist tunnel for everything. Imagine the Israelis raiding the tunnels between Gaza and Egypt to find what sort of stuff that gets in there. They've been preparing for this moment for months. They get their commanders, their special units, their TV cameras, all ready to go down there, down the tunnel to prove that Hamas is smuggling weapons. They get in there, all sweaty, talking on their walkie-talkies, a captain shouting, go, 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 go. Netanyahu sitting in the operation room somewhere Kishti in Tel Aviv. And then they see it. They see the crate. They open it to find the finest bullet-sized lipstick and mascara staring at them, the evidence, the evil that Gaza has been up to. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall in that documentary to see the faces on those soldiers as they open the boxes. What a bunch of mugs. Yet every time those little red bullets get into Gaza to increase Hamas's chances, they increase Hamas's chances of competing with Tinder. Oh, bloody Tinder. Who the fuck came up with it anyway? I once thought to expand my search horizon, find out what's going on the right of the Silic, the defense between Gaza and Israel. I thought to check out the babes of Sderot and Ashkelon. oh my Lord, there were so many hot girls in there with bikinis and all. I've never seen anything like it. I changed my name, of course, to Zav instead of Zaid, and she thought I was Israeli. She sent me pics of her, oh my Lord, I had never seen anything like it. Shit. Anyway, I always wanted to invade Israel somehow. Anyway, it was all going until she suggested we should meet. That was a bit of a dilemma. Imagine the look on the Israeli soldiers' faces when I say to them at the Aries crossing, would you mind, sir? I'm just crossing from Gaza to Israel to get to my date. So I had to tell her, didn't I? And you know what? She blocked me straight away. Her freaking entire government blocks my people in Gaza, and she blocks me on Tinder. Bloody Israeli and bloody Tinder. Thank you. My poetry, which hasn't been, it's not published yet, but it will be soon. I wrote a number of poems for Gaza, and they're mostly actually love poems, and again about the people in Gaza. This one is for an ex-girlfriend. I used to go out in Gaza. And she had the same surname as me, Masoud, but she was from a different family and she was Christian. So it was perfect when we used to go out under Hamas and like, if they say, who's this? I would say she's my sister, holding hands is fine, But recently I just thought about like, where is she? I haven't heard anything from her, like what is happening, So I wrote this poem for her. It's called I Search for You. I search for you, I look for you, in between the living and in between the dead, between the body parts, between the rubble, in the news sound bites and reports from refugee camps in Khan Yunis. I think of you and I look for your name on all the news websites and GoFundMe campaign pages. I once wrote your name on the sand of Gaza Beach, with a love heart symbol and an arrow piercing it in the middle, an N, an A, and an N at both ends. You called me silly. Where are the arrow and the heart now? I want to be silly again. Maybe you could be reading this now. Maybe you are writing this poem. Maybe I dreamt all of this. This next and final poem is called To Gaza with Hope. Gaza in my novels is a character. So if you read my novels, you'll see that it's Gaza as a city, because I love Gaza as a city. It's one of those beautiful Mediterranean towns that you would visit. Long story, but to cut it very short, Alexandria is a replica of Gaza. So if you ever go to Egypt, visit Alexandria, you will see what Gaza looks like. It was built because Alexander the Great destroyed Gaza, and then he regretted it and then ordered the rebuild of a city that looks like it, and that was Alexandria. So I wrote this poem for Gaza because now Gaza is also dying, and it's also being murdered and being violated as a city, not just the people themselves. And the poem is called To Gaza with Hope. I love you further, I love you more, even with no buildings, even with no cafes. I love you further, I love you twice, once for your pride and twice for your strength. Your Jabalia will be inside my heart. I will write it on every beach and on bus stops. I will call my children Rafah, Khan Yunis, Nusayrat, and Beit Hanun. I love you further, beyond what they say and their pain, away from their tanks and hate speeches. I will continue to eat chili like you taught me, tell jokes the way you showed me, love life the way you do, be brave and resist, keep hoping, keep dreaming. I only ask you one thing, stay there for everyone I love. Thank you very much.